Language. Perhaps the hallmark of the human evolution. The human intelligence. Let's go back to around 200,000 years ago. Just for the sake of illustration, let's picture a scenario of when a formulated word was spoken for the very first time. An early human, we'll call him Optimus. Now, he needs a bunch of branches to burn for dinner. But he's busy hunting, so he wants to ask his little son, we'll call him Megatron, to go fetch some sticks from the woods while he's out hunting. And it just so happens that Dad's hands are full of tools. So, for the first time in human history, Optimus uses his voice and his mouth to mean something. Words. Now, how does a word mean something? How do we define things? We separate them. So, the moment you name something, you're drawing outlines, like in comic strips. The moment you say tree, it's separated from the earth. When you say branch, it's separated from the tree. Same with the sky, the stars, the rocks, on and on and on and on. Boom! Knowledge. Breaking the world, what was once whole, into parts and parts of the parts. Knowledge grew exponentially for hundreds of thousands of years. And today, finally, we've actually come to believe that the world is made of individual parts. A bunch of bricks. There is no end to how much you can divide something. New definitions lead to new definitions. It's like this magnet right here. A substance that is one, yet carries within it two inextinguishable polarities. No matter how many times you break them apart, there will always be a North Pole and a South Pole. In Hindu philosophy, this is called Maya, the illusion of the apparent world of never-ending opposites. The Christians call it the original sin, or the fall of man. The geeks call it the Matrix, and many of us would agree that it marked the beginning of civilization as we know it. But I like to call it the linguistic hallucination. A state of hallucination induced by thousands of years of habitual use of our intellect into defining things into units of thought, believing what is said and thought of is real. It's very much like wearing a pair of augmented reality glasses, where you see labels on top of everything the camera system can identify. And after having worn them for such a long time, we forgot we were wearing them, forgetting what it was really like to see. Because today, we really believe there's such a thing as you and I. We really believe that the linguistic separation we started using merely for intellectual convenience has anything to do with how things really are. One of the prime symptoms of this hallucination is that we believe that the core of one's identity, the self, lies behind a bunch of letters. Sorry to tell you, but like the imagined outlines we draw when we name things, it's only a figment of your imagination. But many do manage to break out of this hallucination, take off these goggles. It's been happening all throughout history. It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter how old you are. It happens all the time. It can happen spontaneously. It can happen through the practice of meditation. It can happen through prayers. It can happen by taking chemical substances, both naturally occurring and those that are artificially synthesized. And they spoke of this. They described what they saw. And very often they never really made any sense from a logical standpoint of view because they were full of analogies and metaphors. But how else describe what cannot be described other than poetry, right? And quite a few of them actually became quite popular. The Father and I are one. Lose yourself to find yourself. Do by not doing. Unlearn what you've learned, you must. Very tough crowd you are. These descriptions were also passed on, both in spoken and written form, by those who were really captivated by it, who were really moved by what was said. Regardless, language was still the medium with which these messages were passed on, and they were not immune to the polarization of language. So, over time, what survived was the symbols, the imagery, and the ideas that arose from the dualistic terms that the original poets used, while the original message of oneness, of this feeling of being whole, slowly faded. But the writers were smart. They knew this would happen. They knew that what was easily recognizable, the potent symbols, the strong imagery, would captivate everyone. So, some of these writers wrote in their books that they wrote that the words within the books are futile, that they are not to be an object of attachment. In the Tao Te Ching, the founding book of Taoism, the book begins by saying that the Tao cannot be put into words, before writing 80 more verses explaining what exactly the Tao is. In the Majjhima Nikaya, there is the simile of the raft, which says, if you have used the raft to cross the river, you are to leave the raft ashore and not carry it. In the Holy Bible, before the Bible writes extensively on the knowledge of good and evil of mankind, the book begins with the story of the primordial couple who eats from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil of mankind, and were eternally cursed for doing so. If you can only picture this world in words, ideas, and symbols, you are hallucinating. But I'm not saying the books are wrong or that you should go on a silent retreat and abstain from all intellectual activities. No, that's not what I'm saying. Read the books, use the language. It is our privilege. It is indeed our gift as a species, and we should enjoy them. All I'm saying is, you have to understand that these are no more than tools that help us image the world and communicate about it with other members of the species. They are digestible units of thought for the intellectual stomach. Because we've been experiencing this world through thought for such a long time that we've convinced ourselves that ecology itself is also a system of fragmented parts. I'm sorry if you walked in here hoping to expand your knowledge of the ecological world of blocks, but any understanding in terms of terms is not true understanding. It's a belief in symbols. It's like mistaking a painting for the real thing. Don't look at the painting. Look at the real thing out the window. Because ecology is not a symbol. Ecology was never something to be understood. It never even needed an explanation. You have to understand, knowledge is a luxury. And the irony is that the superficial labeling is the only legitimate form of ecological knowledge we're willing to accept, while we don't really have a good sense of it. Now, let me be clear. I'm not proposing what may sound like a spiritual ecological idea to replace the current conception of ecology. No. On the contrary. I'm only suggesting we try unbelieving any kind of intellectual fragmentation, whether it's philosophy, science, religion, or any other linguistic system. Put it down, even just for a moment, just so you can see the full picture. See ecology in its full view, free from the filter of our intellect. Look with that unobstructed, pure sight, like how a baby would. Now that's how you get to know ecology. As the definitions that separates everything starts to dissolve, you start to see that it is really yourself that you see when you look into the other. Literally. That you do move the mountains, obviously. That you rise and set the sun and the moon. That you are the dance between the trees and the storm, stirring beautiful marbles in the sky and the seas. 'Cause it's you.